Hello there guys, Daniel Childs back here again, and Chelsea are doing a Chelsea once again. Going to be reacting in today's show to the news from David Ornstein and others that Chelsea are in to sign Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. We heard about this last night, that they had at least put their interest forward, that was going to scupper a move to Brighton. Today we've got it from Ornstein that Chelsea have actually submitted an offer and it's in the process of getting done. So obviously there's been a lot of reaction to this. I'll be giving you mine, and it's not positive. And if you follow me on X, you probably know this already, but I'm not in the minority of questioning the logic around this deal. And in the second half, we'll talk about Chelsea's interest in defenders once again, what that means for Trevor Chalobah, and some of the other things that Matt Law has recently reported around Chelsea transfers. Please do hit the like button, please hit subscribe, but let's jump into it. So David Ornstein for The Athletic reporting that Chelsea had contacted Leicester on Thursday to express an interest in recruiting the midfielder, although a bid had yet to be made. But the West London side have now sent a proposal to Leicester, and it is believed that 35 million, and on top of that, Matt Law has reported that there is going to be some exchange of players, it's believed, once again, which has been very frequent this year with the whole PSR deal, where Cesare Casadei, David Dacho Fofana is being discussed. There are others as well in regards to this deal. I don't get it. I think just the first thing to say is Dewsbury-Hall is a fine midfielder. He obviously did a lot of good work for Leicester last season, and I think technically he's one of the better players Leicester have had in recent years. He is a standout player for them. All of that can be true. There's a lot of good to decent players out there, but that doesn't mean they should be anywhere near Chelsea. And the most astonishing thing that I think is summed up pretty well by Liam Toomey is that Chelsea have committed around 300 million in transfer fees on midfielders in the last 2 years. Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo are the two biggest names that come to mind, but you add to that Romeo Lavia, you add to that, of course, Conor Gallagher, who's currently in the first team, Carney Chukwuemeka, Andre Santos, Cesare Casadei, who obviously could be involved in this deal, Romeo Lavia. I'm probably missing out names because Leslie Ugochukwu. The list goes on and on in terms of players they've invested in. So on one front, it doesn't say a lot about that investment, that you're now going to the Championship to buy a player, Dewsbury-Hall, who again had a good season, but it's not exactly an exceptional player, not someone who, instinctively you feel like is a major upgrade on what we currently have. And of course, the second part of this is bending over backwards for a coach, which has been briefed so regularly in recent months, especially in regards to the way things fell out with Pochettino, is they want a coach to be a coach. It's not about the coach leading the transfer strategy. There is some collaboration. I'm not going to take any of the briefing that's probably going to come in the upcoming weeks that somehow Chelsea always had an interest in Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Let's make this abundantly clear. If Chelsea hadn't appointed Enzo Maresca, we would not be in for Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. And there's no point trying to insult fans' intelligence about that, because that is just reality. I mean, the connection between them is so blindingly obvious. The fact that he had a deal to go to Brighton and really Chelsea and Maresca was the thing. I think obviously Chelsea, I think he would see that obviously for his career as a massive step up. But on top of that, of course, working with a coach he had a great relationship with last season is an obvious reason to go as well. So let's not try this BS around how this is somehow all part of the project once again, because it continues this very confusing and contradictory and bizarre transfer approach that raises more questions than answers, doesn't seem to be radically improving what we already have, and in this case potentially leading the way for some very exciting players to leave the club. I mean, what does this mean for Conor Gallagher, who very much I think would have played a Dewsbury-Hall role in Maresca's system? You obviously, Carney Chukwuemeka is a player I'm really excited to see, but we've heard of AC Milan rumours in recent days, and what a move that would be for him personally. Andre Santos, Cesare Casadei, and obviously in a year's time we've got Kenji Pires, who I know some of you pointed out obviously can play a little bit out wide, but has played a lot centrally as well. So it doesn't make sense in terms of what the recruitment policy has been, and I don't think it says a lot about Enzo Maresca's ability that he's been given an upgraded squad, a squad of better talent than he had last year, and he feels again, very clear what this transfer is all about. Feels he needs Dewsbury-Hall. Feels Chelsea desperately need this player to make his system work. And, I don't think it says a lot about a coach. And I think there'll be a lot of Chelsea fans who are already slightly concerned about the Sarri comparisons. They'll go back to Jorginho. Jorginho, obviously in the end, I think had a positive Chelsea career. But I don't think it's going to help Chelsea if Dewsbury-Hall comes in and it makes way for players who I think have higher potential than him, or players that are just simply better than him, like Conor Gallagher. I mean, for all I like Dewsbury-Hall, Conor Gallagher's a better footballer than him and is playing at a high level already. So Chelsea already have players who Maresca should be working with. And I think I said this when Chelsea appointed Enzo Maresca. We shouldn't be bending backwards to buy specialist players who are solely for the head coach. He has been given a good squad. It's on him to work with that squad, because that's the way it's been framed, is that the coach is brought in to work with the squad. It's just a very weird transfer, and it doesn't really correlate even with the recent business Chelsea have done. We spoke about that wage structure thing. I'm not saying that Dewsbury-Hall is going to be on ridiculous wages. I don't expect that at all. It's to do with, well, they're going for some players in this age bracket, not others. This is not, again, in so many ways in recent months at Chelsea, it feels like we are taking lateral to backward steps rather than forward steps. And it's not a move that I think moves the needle. I think it creates more questions, and I feel is absolutely right to be questioned. Because again, it just insults our intelligence, I think, in terms of what this project is supposed to be. And I think that there is no mental gymnastics or gaslighting that can be done to take away from that, because I don't think it's a move of a club looking to upgrade what they currently have, looking to compete today when they need to compete today. We need to financially get in the Champions League very soon to get that revenue, because we have spent a lot on this squad. Does Dewsbury-Hall massively move the needle compared to, say, Michael Elise? I mean, I'll leave that question for you, but I don't think it should take that long to answer. And the answer isn't no. And I know it sounded harsh, but, you recruit a championship manager, you then buy championship players. And, I think it's probably more unfair for Dewsbury-Hall than it is for Maresca, because Maresca really is only coached in the championship. And that's about it in his coaching career so far that we can really look at. It's just a really, really puzzling moment for Chelsea once again, and just continues a summer that I just don't think is leading us to believe that the club is going to move in a great direction. That isn't to say we haven't got talented players currently. We do. It's in terms of squad building, it just doesn't make a lot of sense in my opinion. The other thing to speak about is Matt Law was on the London is Blue podcast, and he spoke about how Chelsea remaining in the market for a first-team striker, another winger, especially a right-footed winger, and at least one more defender. One of those defenders that's been linked from The Guardian is Murillo from Nottingham Forest, and apparently Chelsea are going to offer Trevor Chalobah as part of the deal. Murillo apparently has emerged as a target for Maresca, even though Chelsea's squad already contains 6 centre-backs. He is 21 years old, so again, a younger centre-back who is impressed. Again, I don't see the reason for signing this player. Murillo obviously has had a decent season for Nottingham Forest. They stayed in the Premier League, and we've already have an abundance of centre-backs. And, I think Matt Law made a brilliant point about this, where he said that, he believes, just on his personal view, and I have the same, right? If you're going to spend in that area, again, a really experienced, a dominant centre-back to bring a bit of leadership and character and wisdom to a young squad, especially a young area of the team. And you're going to be selling Trevor Chalobah, who has more experience, more high-level Premier League experience than Murillo. We already lack leadership in the squad. You're going to lose more of that with Chalobah. Of course, you've gained probably some, and hopefully some, prime experience with Tosin, who I think is a good signing on a free transfer. But obviously there's a lot of names within there. Axel Disasi, there's still, I think, a question mark over him, absolutely. Wesley Fofana, will see how he returns from injury. If he returns, brilliant. Exceptional player. I think is someone who will hopefully be in Chelsea's squad for a long period of time. But his injury record is concerning, absolutely. Benoit Badiashile had a good end to the year, but, didn't really convince for a lot of it and had a lot of down days. Levi Colwell, obviously, is someone who got injured towards the end of the season. Hopefully can pick up some of the good form he showed during the season. I don't think he was always amazing last year, but I think the potential is absolutely there for a player to be big for Chelsea. So I think you're just shuffling, and player trading. I don't, again, is the intention of transfers to work around financial restrictions or PSR sort of penalties, or is it making the squad better? That's a question I keep on going back to. And whenever I frame it like that, there's so many moves this summer that just baffle me and don't answer the question correctly. Like that's, I don't, you do feel like, I feel like at times I'm living in the twilight zone when I see people try and bend over backwards to try and justify these things. Like surely as a fan, what you'd want is for us to walk into the new season with a stronger squad than we had at the end of last. Is it going to be the case? Again, I just don't have a lot of faith. I don't think that Chelsea, I sometimes think Chelsea are their worst enemies in the transfer market. And I've written some pieces for Substack, cheap plug here. I've kicked off my Substack once again with a few pieces, trying to write at least one piece a week around Chelsea. I've written recently about the transfer window. I wrote recently about PSR, and I've written very recently about the wage structure. I know those are things we covered on the show, but I've looked at those topics in more depth. So please go and subscribe. It's free too. If you want to read the articles, I'll link down in the description box below, and maybe you can give some topics that you'd like to see me cover on Substack and also the show. But yeah, I again, I feel like I'm a broken record on this. I hate being this negative or just like critical, but I don't know what evidence I'm being given to make me think otherwise. Because these are not the moves of a team who desperately need Champions League football. These are not the moves of a team who are looking at their squad, looking at what they've built. It's not just about who you sell that's wrong. It's not just about who you're buying that's wrong. It's also who you've already bought. Like the investment they have made on that midfield for some young players who just logically you'd think, well, you invested in that young player, these young players, likes of Connie Chukwuemeka, the likes of Andre Santos. What are those players' futures going to be? It's a bit like the right wing position, right? I liked Elise because I did think the exception you make with Elise is he is, I think, an upgrade on what we have. I think he is a very, very talented player. But then with that deal falling through, I guess the positive is you do have a lot of young players who will hopefully be given more of an opportunity. The logic is when you buy those players, you're going to give them some time. The Dewsbury-Hall signing doesn't help that at all. It creates further clutter. It creates probably a bottleneck. This is a guy, 25, coming into the prime years of his career. He ain't moving to Chelsea to wait 2 to 3 years to start playing football. The other guys are, and the other guys will look at their kind of future at Chelsea and start to ask questions. Despite, of course, Chelsea have a ton of games next year. I'm not denying that. Chelsea think they can play like an 80-game season if you include the Club World Cup, but it's very feasible Chelsea are going to play, I think, 60. I could see Chelsea playing 60. So I understand some of the logic for having a bigger squad. I just don't understand why some of those players that we've named already that were already at the club or that could be promoted from the academy can't do a decent job. And so those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. We'll be covering the madness of Chelsea Football Club that just continues on. We've got the kit launch soon. We've got Maresca's first interview. We've got pre-season. But hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.